Warning, this content may be disturbing to some audiences. Subscribe. If you dare. A friend had to try and defend a bloke who got caught 3 times being intimate with a donkey on a local farm. Hey everybody, welcome to AskReddit. People ask Reddit. Lawyers of Reddit, what is the most outrageous case someone has asked you to take? Number 1. Had a case where a man refused to pay rent because his apartment smelled terrible and was making him sick. His landlord tried to evict him. A few days after taking the case and before his first hearing, the ceiling in his bathroom collapsed. Turns out some plumbing wasn't connected and his ceiling/walls had been filling with poop for weeks/months. The landlord settled pretty quickly after that. Number 2. I got a call from a client I had represented in the past, wanting me to help out her son. He and his girlfriend wanted to get married, but she was under 18, so she needed permission from her parents, and they wouldn't give permission. We chatted about it for a while and then she told me it was an urgent matter, because the girl was pregnant. I said, wait, how old did you say she was? Mom said 14. I said, and how old is your son? Mom said 20. I said, you need to immediately hire a criminal defense lawyer to help you with this. And then I had to explain to her why her son had a bigger problem than not being able to get married. This was in the southern US. In this situation, there was an extremely high chance that the son could be charged with statutory rape and child molestation. I didn't look up the law, so I don't know if her being pregnant would have allowed them to get married without consent. Even if they did get married, he could still be charged. They never called me back, so I don't know for sure what happened, but I knew the family and I don't think I ever saw the son's name pop up on any court dockets, so I guess it all worked out in the end and nobody made a fuss about him knocking up a 14-year-old. Number 3. Commenter. A prospective client once called me to ask if I did personal injury cases because she felt a fall coming on. Person B. My dad was a juror on a trial for a woman who had slipped and fallen in a big box store before anyone could put up a wet floor sign. This was in Florida, where rain can be very spontaneous. The case was thrown out when the defense lawyer accidentally let slip that this was the woman's 10th lawsuit for slipping on a wet floor. Sadly, not thrown out as in she's nuts, but thrown out as in we have to start over with all new jurors because the jury needs to review each case independently, and they were unfairly biased by knowing this woman's history. Now the big box stores in our area just leave their wet floor signs up 24/7. Number 4. I remember a guy called me and wanted to take action against the post office. He had received a letter from them saying that they would no longer deliver packages to him as he was never appropriately dressed when he opened the door to accept them. I remember being nervous about asking him to elaborate. Number 5. My family member sued me for taking down their website. I created the website. I hosted the website. I had no problem doing it since they were family and it ran on my server. Unfortunately, they got too much traffic. They started being very hostile to my parents. I took down their site. I sent them a letter about how families should treat one another with a passworded zip of all their files. The password was at the bottom of the letter, so they had to read it to receive it. Got sued for 6 figures. They were pulling in at most $300 a month. They said that I did irrefutable damage to their site and that they couldn't get the site online because it was impossible. In court, they brought the whole database printed out. When they showed it to me on the stand, I laughed because I told the judge, that's all the information that they said they couldn't receive or open. All the counts were in my favor. Best part was prior to our court session, my lawyer suggested highly that we settle out of court. They didn't take it. After they lost, their lawyer asked if we could just settle on the amount from settlement. My lawyer told them to F off. It was glorious. Number 6. As a public defender, I defended a grown man accused of stealing magic cards from Walmart. There was an hour-long security video meticulously showing, from dozens of angles, that he was picking up sets of cards, unwrapping them and discarding the wrappers around the store. He insisted that he was innocent, and we actually went to a jury trial instead of securing a plea deal. It took the jury 8 minutes to convict him, and the judge laid into my client telling him that he was the worst thief he had ever seen. I forgot the best part. At one point in the trial I had to spend 45 minutes explaining to the judge what magic cards are. He couldn't understand why anyone needed more than one deck. Number 7. First case out of law school, 3-way custody battle between a dad who was in and out of jail on drug charges, mom who was an escort, and grandfather who had a library of child pornography on his phone, our client. Mom was also paying her lawyer by trading services. Mom ended up winning custody, on the condition she stopped being an escort. Number 8. The first case is the case of the donkey fucker. A friend had to try and defend a bloke who got caught 3 times being intimate with a donkey on a local farm. The guy kept on getting caught because he had to take a step ladder with him, and every time it happened the farmer spotted the ladder bouncing up and down behind the fence every time the guy walked to the barn. The barrister in this case had defended the IRA in the past and his words were bloody long step away from the IRA but the same amount of money. The defendant didn't have a case and was completely open about his bestiality in open court. No shame whatsoever supposedly. The second is actually a friend of mine who is a magistrate, basically volunteers from the community who act as judges in smaller cases prior to Crown Court. I'm unsure whether you have these in the rest of the world. A guy appeared before magistrates, where I think he had attacked a police officer. They first watched a video of the event with the guy shouting all sorts of obscenities at the police. He then, when asked to answer for his crime, started to pretend to speak another language. His solicitor just said, "Please forgive my client, he does speak English, however he is an idiot." After this blatant lie of trying to speak a foreign language which was complete and utter nonsense, he then started to pretend that he was deaf and dumb, thus started to mimic what he thought was sign language, pointing at his mouth and shaking his head. His solicitor again, "Please forgive my client, he is not deaf and dumb, he is just stupid." My friend who was heading up the magistrate's board, then said to the defendant, "Please take a seat, Mr. X." He responds, "Yeah, no problem, love." Number 9. Many years ago when I was still a trainee solicitor, my then mentor wanted me to see a client on his behalf. He didn't give me any details other than he was a new client, and I was to take initial instructions. Criminal law BTW. So there I am, keen but wet behind the ears, when this very large man comes into my small office and starts to inquire about the legal age of consent, 16 in my country. He then tells me the reason is he wants to start producing porn and wants to be sure about the law. Well then that changes the answer, as it is a different question, 18 in my country. He gets upset and animated, saying how he wanted to produce porn that had much younger girls in it, 14-ish. I explain the legal implications of this and how he would find himself in jail in very little time. He then goes on to his next idea, which is he wants to produce porn for animals, not bestiality or anything like that, videos of 2 animals making love, and he wants to retail it to domestic pets. At this point my mentor had overheard some if not all of the consultation. Without saying a word he walked into my office, up to my desk. I kept a picture of my family dog on my desk. He takes the picture of my dog off my desk and leaves the room. It was the strangest consultation I have ever had to this day. Number 10. I've been asked to evict a ghost. I actually did that one. I regularly get phone calls promising to make me a millionaire if I'll sue the police. There's the completely guilty sex offender sitting in jail who wanted me to handle his appeal under circumstances that would have resulted in him being released. Then immediately charged and convicted of a more serious crime. Number 11. The day after President Obama won the election in 2008, I had a potential client cold call for a claim of copyright infringement. He wanted to sue President-elect Obama for having 7 U.S. flags on the podium during his acceptance speech. The potential client claimed he had copyrighted the use of 7 flags on a stage for presentations. This is ridiculous and would never have been allowed a registration. But he didn't know that. Likely the potential client was high, drunk, or a scammer. My guess is he wanted to file a lawsuit, then sit down in a boardroom during pretrial motions and try to settle for a nominal sum. He would get a few thousand, minus lawyer fees, and go away. Second most outrageous case was a potential client wanted to protect copyright, maybe patent, a Wii sex game that used the Wii controller and Wii Fit. I wanted to take it, but was voted down by the firm. When I told the inventor this, he said, in a resigned voice, "Third time that's happened." I really felt bad for that inventor but put him on to another of my friends who was a solo IP lawyer. Number 12. I worked legal aid for a while. Every day was outrageous and goes something like this, but I have a restraining order on my first ever client. The very first person I ever spoke to in a legal capacity was a woman who wanted to sue her contractor for $250,000 for an unfinished job and emotional distress. First, being upset at an incomplete job is an emotional distress. Second, the contract was only for about $100,000, and upon further questioning I learned that this contractor had actually completed all terms of the contract. This woman eventually admitted she was suing him because he was rude and always late. I informed her that we would not take this case. Additionally, I warned her that a failure to pay the contract would most likely result in the contractor suing her. She found this idea ludicrous and began to yell at me in my office, first person on my first day, about how she had a right as an American that I act as her lawyer. So I handled that. We are not helping her in this case. 2 days later, I get a call from the contractor's attorney stating that this woman has cited me as her attorney and threatened a hailstorm of suits upon the contractor from me. It took all of 5 minutes for the other attorney to realize what was going on. Heck, they even made sure to remind me of the steps I should take to protect myself from any related suits this lady might bring upon me. Actually, I still talk to this attorney, so silver lining on the first day I suppose. About a month or two passes, foggy on time frame. Woman comes in again, furious because the contractor sued her and was able to get a lien on the property. She said this was my fault because I didn't help her. I managed to talk her down. She then immediately gets fired up again because they are trying to scam her into giving them all her documents. Turns out, trial on the matter was coming up in about a week, and they had requested photographs of allegedly unfinished work, damages, etc., as well as the original contract and payment receipts. Basically, all stuff is very typical and reasonable to request and that she is obligated to provide. She, and nearly every client I worked with in this capacity, thought that evidence was supposed to be a surprise at trial and that sharing this information would hurt her case. No shit, it would hurt her case because she is a liar. Anyways, again, not her lawyer. Actually make her sign a paper signifying she understands this. She leaves. Months pass, I'm no longer at legal aid. Lady finds me at my school. I get a call from the effing dean asking me to swing by. Says he just met with a disgruntled client of mine who says I cost her home, marriage, and children. Apparently things went downhill fast. She claimed she would do everything in her power to make sure I never did anything again. Anyways, Dean is a nice guy and helped me with my restraining order paperwork. Make sure to share your personal story in the comments below and have the opportunity to be featured in a future video. Also, if you like these topics, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button to continue seeing more content like this every day. See you next time.